Hi, I'm Janelle Nanos, business reporter with the Boston Globe, and this is the Globe Summit. We're talking today about reimagining food from lab to table and the Boston food tech ecosystem. I am so excited to be here with my panelists today to talk about innovation in our food innovation economy. And I wanted to give our panelists a few minutes to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about the role they play here in Boston. So if you would. Please, Lauren.
Excellent. Well, Thank you for having me, Janelle, and thank you to the Boston Globe for hosting this event. My name is Lauren Abda. I started a company here back in 2013 called Branchfood. Branchfood is a launchpad for food innovation, and we really work to connect all corners of the food industry through events, consulting, and investments made through our sister company, Branch Venture Group. I'm super passionate about food. I'm even more passionate about the opportunity that Boston has for being a leader in this industry, and so I'm excited to talk about it with you today.
Amazing. Thank you. Chris?
Thanks for having me. So my name is Christophe Chantre. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Tender, and we're a company that's here to enable massive growth of the alternative meat industry. We're a technology company and here to be really that underlying platform that can help this industry grow, kind of like the NVIDIA of alternative protein. And we're doing this because meat and dairy production, animal agriculture is one of the most polluting and destructive industries on our planet. It accounts for roughly 15% of all carbon emissions, which is more than our entire transportation systems combined. So boats, trains, planes, cars, everything. And we need to find solutions to that problem. And so what the industry has done over the last decade, I'd say, Impossible, Beyond, and others, is really show that if we create products that are starting to recreate the sensory experience of a piece of meat, but are made from plants, then people are excited to buy them. Where we are today is that while there's a lot of interest for this industry, the products are still not good enough. They're still not healthy enough, and they're wildly too expensive. And so us, Tender, we're here to be this technology partner to the entire industry and really help all the companies out there create products that are a lot tastier, a lot healthier, and a lot more affordable.
That's great. And Adam Melonas is also joining us. His work took him outside of Boston for the moment, but he's still here and with us in spirit. Adam, welcome.
Thank you, and I appreciate this new COVID era hybrid way of doing panels, so I appreciate it. So, Adam Melonas, accent I think gives it away. I'm an Aussie. I call myself a recovering chef. I built a career on essentially 5 different restaurants in 5 countries around the world. Expensive food for rich people wasn't really making the impact that I wanted it to make, which is on a global scale. So we started to dive into consumer packaged goods. In the last 11 years, also like Lauren, we founded the company back in 2013. And then the last 11 years, we've done about just in excess of about 4,500 consumer products. Each and every one of these meet 5 key hurdles: delicious, nutritious, sustainable, profitable, scalable. So essentially just trying to make impact with every bite and sip.
Fantastic. Well, knowing that you guys have all been in this space for a long time, I want to talk about the food innovation ecosystem here in Boston and the idea of food tech, because I'm not sure everyone knows what food tech is or is familiar with the concept. What is it about Boston that has afforded this opportunity to become a place where innovation can happen? And I think, when we think about innovation in the food space, we don't just have to think about it now, but I think we can actually go back and look at how Boston's been innovative in this space for many, many years. Lauren, you're the one who sort of thought about creating a space for innovators to come together. What made you think Boston was the right place, and what have you drawn over the last decade of doing this work?
Great questions. So first, on the topic of what is food tech, I think the simplest description of it is technology that's applied to the food system, from growing food to distributing food to processing food to selling food to consuming food to figuring out what to do with food waste. It really is technology across that full spectrum of the movement of food through our supply chains. And so just want people to think about that when they hear sort of and are trying to understand what we're talking about with technology in the industry. I think Boston, to your point, has always been a leader in food in different ways, dating back to the creation of the microwave oven, the creation of, for the time, at least, it was pretty innovative. Frozen orange juice. We're talking about baking soda. Baking soda was originally found in Boston. So it's a really fun history. And I think as we think about innovations for their time, a lot of the businesses that were here introduced those products into the market. Today, Boston has changed a lot, and the makeup of the community has changed a lot, and I think that's really been influenced by, the private sector here, the public sector, as well as, academia. As we think about, one of the things I like to reference is Michael Porter's cluster theory, and what makes for a competitive cluster that actually creates more innovation within that particular industry. And it's comprised of, a number of different things, but, here in Boston, we've got, as I said, the academic institutions that are drawing talent from around the world to work in these research institutes, to work in labs, to really, be thinking about and creating new technologies that can be applied to many different industries, but specifically food. It's the longstanding industry, the legacy industry that's here. Greater Boston is actually home to over $12 billion food brands. You think about Ocean Spray, Welch's, Necco Wafer, Marshmallow Fluff, all of these brands that are here, creates a community of people that understand this industry in great depth and are thinking about, what can I do to make it more efficient? What can I do to optimize our processes? How can I implement innovation and technology into these different parts of the industry to help it, advance and keep up with the pace of, different sectors as well. And so I think that there's a number of different drivers that are inspiring the creation of these new products, technologies, and services that are coming to market. The healthcare industry that's here, biotech and life sciences industries that are here, high-tech industry that's here. Within all of those sectors, we're seeing people interested in applying their skill sets to food. And I think Adam and Christophe have done that in an incredible way. You'll obviously hear more about what they've created, but we're just getting started because I think the industry is really at the precipice of change to actually be drawing in these technologies to really improve a lot of what they're doing.
Well, and to your point, I think Christophe and Adam are not only, creating some of these technologies, but you're also recruiting people from universities and from labs throughout the city. Tell me a little bit more about that and how this ecosystem has worked to your advantage. Christophe, you want to start?
I mean, even, and I guess to start, we were really part of this group of people that, my background is in biotech and bioengineering, and so we were in research labs that were funded for doing biotech and bioengineering. But we were seeing a lot of what we were developing was really transferable to what's happening in food. And so we learned a lot about how we could make a piece of muscle in those Harvard labs and then learn how to be able to essentially build that in the context of food. And now, a lot of the people that we're hiring today, you have a whole ecosystem of extremely skilled and talented people that are also really interested in this whole industry. I think we're seeing a lot more people that care about their health and care about nutrition and want to work in it in that way. And so we're able to hire a bunch of people from all the different research institutions and schools that you have around here, and people that want to work in this industry.
That's great.
And it's really just getting started.
Yeah. Adam, do you want to share your own thoughts as well? Because I know you're constantly looking to expand your own operations and pulling from the academic world as well.
Yeah, look, I think if we kind of timestamp this as well, I think 11 years ago, let me say it was a much harder battle. Trying to recruit people. Typically, the rule of thumb is if they come from California or Colorado, they don't want to leave. So we were trying to recruit, and back in that day, 11 years ago, the Boston food scene. Although as we mentioned, there were plenty of interesting innovations happening. It wasn't the most let's say thriving food scene beyond using salt as a flavor. It was really kind of lacking. So. It's gotten a lot better, and as Christophe just mentioned, we are seeing a lot more collaboration now coming from different universities, and those are both homegrown ones within the Boston area, as well as really, really great relationships with the likes of even the Basque Culinary Center out of northern Spain. We've ended up recruiting a whole bunch of different interns to begin with and hired from there. So we're seeing a lot of really great talent now. Starting to look at Boston as an option where it was not necessarily considered one of the kind of A-list places to go.
It's great. You know, I want to talk a little bit about one of the biggest touch points that we've been hearing about during the politics and the election this season, and it's food prices. And as much as you know, technology, we're sort of got our heads down, maybe in a lab, you're building something. We're thinking about, you know, the outcomes of that all the way, and that ultimately means what people are paying at the grocery store. I mean, one of the biggest hot button issues of the campaign, it's come up a lot on different people's platforms. We're seeing trends in the marketplace now play out as well, as food prices have driven people more down market. We're buying more supermarket store brands. You know, Adam, you and I were talking a little bit as we were preparing for this call, and you said you're sort of seeing a shift play out in terms of how innovation is actually, you know, carrying through to the grocery store itself. You know, while we're seeing all of these great ideas here, the outcomes are kind of maybe pulling back a little bit. And you actually described an innovation gap. How are those two things working in tandem right now? And what are you seeing, and why are you seeing this innovation gap taking place?
Yeah, we also, if we think of this as more cyclical, right? I think, you know, if we even go back in the, let's call it the, you know, 2016, 17, 18, this was typically the time of the visionaries. We talk about these visionary CEOs of these top 10 food and beverage companies in the world who typically were looking for real breakthrough, real disruptive innovation, right? And so that was driving a lot more new formats, you know, frankly, braver, you know, innovations and things like that. But then 2019, obviously COVID rolled around. Things started then very much focusing on cost cutting, cost optimizing, all of this sort of stuff. We then roll into this kind of post-COVID bursting of the bubble. Supply chains have been overbuilt. Now, all of a sudden, all of that quote unquote innovation now has turned to renovation. We start to hear things like shrinkflation. We start to see, you know, certain brands who are on the TV right now with ads talking about not new flavors and not new formats, but new packs. Now there's multi-packs inside of a large pack. And the secret there is when you put 9 small multi-packs inside of the same size box, you can actually save 18 crackers. And so, you know, things like that. None of these things have been benefiting the consumer. So what we've been talking about is this notion of the innovation gap being consumers are yearning for something that gets them inspired and excited these days, and obviously something that's cost effective. But when the innovation is not there, when the excitement is not there, that's when we're seeing consumers now going down market to private label. Typically, private label is a fast follower, but it's a net even swap when the rest of the market is dull and boring. So therefore, private label at the moment is growing at 9%, whereas regular branded products are only growing, depending on the company, it's between 1% to 3%. And and the real story is if you actually look at if you don't look at dollar sales, if you look at unit sales. So unit sales of branded products are going down. Dollar sales are either staying flat or going up, only because they've all taken price increases. So net, people are going down market. Private label is increasing, which is a sad day because that means that they've settled for the fact that the market is very vanilla. Why not go for the trusty private label instead of the thing that used to inspire them, which I think is a major opportunity at the moment.
Are you seeing that innovation gap in your work too? I mean, or do you feel like there's a little bit of a disconnect there?
I mean, yeah, there's definitely a disconnect in the sense that in our industry, in particular, in alternative protein, it's been really challenging because the products that are on market today are vastly more expensive than animal meat to start with.
Right.
It's 60, 70, 80% more expensive. And then when you compound that with inflation, it makes it altogether very unaffordable for most people. Whereas meat has increased in cost, but it's starting from a much lower price.
Right.
And so it makes, I think for our industry as a whole, it makes it very difficult right now because all these innovations, they require a lot of investment in R&D and scaling up.
Right.
And so it's kind of expected that when you launch a product in market, there's going to be some sort of premium. You're going to pay more for that innovation.
Right.
But it's just a time in the market right now where it's not, it makes it a lot more difficult.
Well, and it's challenging right now to get funding too. I mean, anybody in VC right now, or who's trying to get VC right now, is struggling because of inflation and just hesitancy on the part of the market right now. But food tech's also sort of seeing some challenges, although there have been some bright spots. Let's acknowledge that. Tender had a $11 million Series A this year, which is great news. But what do you think about the VC component? You've been investing now for many years. What does the future hold in terms of the VC aspect of this?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think food and agriculture broadly, it's such a massive industry globally. It's such a massive industry. And actually, it represents about 10% of global gross domestic product across the world, which is phenomenal. It has the opportunity, and within it, there are these massive markets that can be created. But at the same time, venture capital has played a very small role in actually helping this industry evolve and change. We could talk about the challenges in applying venture capital type funding to the food industry, which, traditional venture capital doesn't really like asset heavy businesses. Food is a very asset heavy type of industry when you're talking about moving food products through a supply chain. So, relative to other industries like automotive, healthcare, they've seen so much more venture capital investment as compared to the size of their markets than food has. But I actually do think that's very much changing. I think we're seeing more and more funds be developed that are dedicated to supporting entrepreneurs, creating new alternative protein companies, creating new companies that are related to regeneratively farmed produce and agriculture, focusing their efforts on, companies that are building sensors, drones, robotics for food, life sciences that have food industry application. So I think broadly, venture is finding its way in food, but it really is coming into these enabling technologies that are helping to evolve the industry. They're not as much on the consumer side, but even on the consumer side, I think, we always look for, when we're looking at investment opportunities in consumer product brands, category defining brands that have the ability to really shape a category and change it. For instance, plant-based milks are probably a really good example of what, is now, when you go to that category in the grocery store, you see a lot of different types of plant-based milks as opposed to animal-based milks. So, I think that right before our eyes, we're seeing these categories change. We also look at, companies that are creating sort of innovative new basic sort of building blocks of new food products. So for some of those businesses, they have a really deep food science foundation, and Adam can talk a little bit more to this. There's IP potential and there's ownership potential in those, highly valued aspects of the business that venture capitalists really like. And so it's becoming more VC friendly, I think, the industry, but only because the industry itself really needs to change amidst consumer trends that are forcing it, amidst climate trends that are forcing it. Even governments are playing a really strong role in helping to ensure that their food industry, is growing and maturing and keeping pace with the change that so desperately needs to happen to ensure its sustainability long term. So venture's finding its way, but I think we're just at the precipice of it.
Well, to that end, I know we saw $10 million earmarked in the Massachusetts Economic Development Bill for the development of all proteins, which was a big win for companies like Tender. Talk to me a little bit about the fact that the state of Massachusetts is actually leaning into helping promote an alternative protein company, as opposed to other states that are actually banning the process, like Florida and Alabama, who are saying, we don't want lab-grown meats. What does it mean to be a leader specifically in alternative proteins?
I think it's, $10 million in the grand scheme of things, in the grand scheme of food, is still very small. Right. But it's a start, and I think it's a really meaningful signal. The state like Massachusetts deciding that they want to support this industry. And it's a really strong signal to all stakeholders in the industry, whether it's startups like us, whether it's larger companies, investors. When we go out and fundraise and we can say, hey, we're gonna raise $2 million from this investor, but we're gonna get another $2 from the government. Right. That means it's 50%, 100% more investments that we're getting. And so if we get that kind of signaling from the start, I think it's really powerful. Just as an example, Massachusetts did this 10 or 15 years ago with the biotech industry. They invested around $1 billion then. And 15 years ago, it already had a lot of the academic institutions and there was a lot of companies, but that $1 billion created all the incentives to really create the biotech hub of the world that Boston and the Boston region is today. And so I think our hope is that 10 million is a start, and that there'll be a lot more down the road that will come our way for alternative protein, but for food technology more broadly. And there is just because food, again, as Lauren said, is an enormous industry. And so if we're able to invest in breakthrough technologies that can really create structural change, the impacts are enormous, but the financial upside is as well. And so I think it's a clear investment that the state would be making. Yeah,
that's great. I have a question here from one of our audience members, and I thought specifically to you, your point. But how do you respond to folks who are skeptical about engineered food? So, I mean, I think that is one of the big hurdles you have to overcome when it comes to getting
I think
people.
like the industry as a whole needs to do a better job of being more transparent about how we are making foods. But on the other end of it, I think I don't know that many people are asking how a Pringle is made, right? So it really depends like who your audience is. And I think we're in an industry where a lot of the consumers that are looking to reduce their meat consumption come from a view of, well, they want to have a healthier diet and they want to be kind of kinder to the planet. And so there, it's obviously extremely important for us to be very transparent about how we're making our products. And so in our case, very specifically to respond to that question, I mean, we've invented technologies that allow us to use a very simple list of ingredients that are all very recognizable. And so it's a very kind of simple and transparent and kind of clean process, maybe in comparison to Pringles, which is probably a lot more opaque, and I wouldn't want to know how it's made.
Well, to your point about people's health concerns, I mean, one of the outcomes we're seeing right now from the pandemic is we're seeing worsening eating habits on the part of Americans right now. We're seeing higher obesity, diabetes are going up, higher cholesterol rates. People are eating less produce. And at the same time, we're also seeing the arrival of these new weight loss drugs like Ozempic, which are really kind of curbing people's appetites, changing consumer habits in terms of their eating patterns. All of this has really big repercussions for the way people are going to eat going forward. I'm really curious how these two things are playing out within the realm of food innovation right now, how they're sort of steering some of the conversations you're having internally and externally with your partners. Adam, maybe you want to start here because I know this is close to your heart.
Yeah, this one's a softball. So I'm actually in the Middle East right now, and so we've been chatting with the government over here. There is a major problem, right? This is let's call it a global health crisis, and frankly, I think one that warrants the likes of a global emergency type COVID reaction situation. Some of the numbers are just staggering, and frankly, they're going in the wrong direction. So yes, there is a pharmacological solution, which is frankly highly effective and highly interesting, but it only treats the symptom. It doesn't go after the root cause, and frankly, some of those numbers we're seeing in the root cause. And some of the things that kind of stick in my mind as we go through these numbers and all the data is simple facts like Japan has a childhood obesity rate of less than 3%. The US has a childhood obesity rate of 18.7%. Exactly the same species of children, just a very, very, very different relationship with food. So I think a big part of the problem, and if we get back to innovation, a big part of the problem is the low bar on healthy food is that you don't really have to innovate it so well. I think that there's almost a badge of honor if this thing tastes really terrible, that it must be good for you. And that's okay for adults who are galvanized in, I want to do something better. But that's not gonna work with kids. So we've been dedicating ourselves to for the last 11 years, really innovating products with exactly the same intelligence, methodologies, etc., as all the other indulgent foods, but tasking ourselves with the ability to make them remarkably better. So I think it is a public meets public sector meets policy meets education. So we're in the process of framing some educational components now, because if it's just better food but you don't teach the kids exactly what's in it, how it's made, what it does to you, etc., then it's never going to stick. So we think it's the complicated topic of a 360-degree approach.
Mm-hmm. I would add as well, I think, now more than ever, every stakeholder is getting involved in the food conversation, including insurers. And insurers are, they're incentivized to see us last as long as we can and ensure that we have, productive, high quality of life. We've been in discussions with some of them that are creating dedicated programs to help support people that, may be on some of these medications, but are thinking about how does my diet have to change alongside, now taking them. And some of the symptoms create certain, biological impacts that could be, reduced or changed depending on the diet that you're consuming. It's
Sure.
not just about eating less food, but it's about eating more whole food and simple food and nutritious food. And so it's been really interesting to see, I think, the broader food industries, sort of what they're doing in the era of these types of drugs and being used specifically for weight loss. And they're getting, they're developing programs very quickly to help people sustain a healthy life, and really address, the impact of the, symptoms that they're having on these different types of drugs through food and through conveniently sourced food as well.
That's great. Well, so I know we're about to run out of time here. We only have a few minutes left. So I wanted to open up, because one of my favorite things in talking with all of you, and why I love having you as my sources, is because I feel like every time I hang up the phone, I have a sense of what's going to be on my plate in a few years from now. So when it comes to the food and innovation ecosystem, either here in Boston or just in general, what are you most excited about? What's the future of food? What are we going to be eating someday soon?
I mean, I can start, and I think I don't have a specific answer to what we're going to eat. I think what I'm really excited about in this industry is that if we look back at like the 30, 40, 50 years of the food industry, there have been innovations for sure, and some of them have been really impactful globally. Whether it's GMOs, whether it's the cold chain, storage and so on. There's all kinds of things that have benefited us. But overall, if you compare that to the tech industry or the biotech industry or AI, it feels kind of very slow moving. And I think we're arriving at a point now where you have a lot more consumer interest for what people are, what they want to eat. They want to eat healthier. They want to understand what's in it. And on the other side, you have this convergence of a whole host of new technologies that are coming to, I'd say, maturity, where now we can really enable a new wave of much superior products that were just not available before. So I think we're really just getting started, and we could really call that food tech is only 5 or 10 years old, and really it's just only getting started. So I don't have a clear answer as to what we'll be eating 5, 10 years from now, but I think there'll be a lot of stuff that we can't even imagine, and it'll really be a lot tastier, a lot healthier, while still being affordable. Yeah,
that's great. Adam, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, look, I think acutely right now there's a great opportunity around actual net new innovation. So I'm very excited about that. But I think if I look into my self-serving crystal ball here, I would say in the not too distant future, we are making choices not about which products do we think are going to be the tastiest versus and do us the most harm versus the one that we're going to torture ourselves with and they're going to be healthy for us. I think it's going to be which flavor do I want, which format do I want, because food is not going to be about doing good or doing harm. It's just going to be stuff that's designed to nourish us, and we're going to apply the intelligence that we've been developing over decades, and we're going to apply it to food. We're going to treat food like we're feeding it to our own children, and we're going to make the right decisions, and it's going to add to the landscape.
Wonderful. Lauren, I'll let you have a last word here.
Yeah, well, I think the future of food is Boston. So come to Boston and discover, all of the amazing innovations that are taking place here. We did a report not too long ago, participated with some of our ecosystem partners in a report that actually identified over 140 companies that are based in the greater Boston area, working in food tech, of course, too. And Christophe's company, Tender, are part of that. But I think in terms of the enabling technologies that are coming into the industry, they have massive potential to help drive efficiency, optimization, ensure that the system is, not creating the problem, but is the solution, and create an industry that is a force for good. So I'm really, curious to see what, the brightest minds that are based here locally are bringing to market, and invest in them alongside of our colleagues at Branch Venture Group, and really support those individuals with, community and people that can help accelerate the growth of their businesses as they're really looking to have a positive impact on our food system.
Well, we will keep having you back, and so you can talk about this at the next Globe Summit. Thank you so much to all of you. Thank you, Adam, who's, I think, talking to us at midnight on the other side of the world.
1 o'clock. 1 o'clock.
Was okay. And thank you so much to everyone watching at home. This is the final presentation for the Globe Summit today, but please join us again tomorrow for more fascinating conversations with Boston Globe journalists and Boston's innovators. We'll see you tomorrow.